Well, good morning. Here we are, more than halfway through the month of September, coming up to the first day of fall. So I know in Louisville, we've enjoyed a couple of cooler days here, but they've told us the heat is coming back. As I put out in the invitation this morning, I thought we'd start out by talking about the Makers Faire. And I know that I saw Ed Brown there, and I saw Eric there. And Ed, did you have a comment you wanted to say
I
about the
thought
fair?
I I was only there about an hour or two, but I thought it went real well overall, and with our booth there or your booth. But I thought it went well. A lot of young folks, which was good.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, uh, Tom and I manned a booth, and the booth consisted of a regular 8-foot folding table and 2 chairs. We each brought 2 movements, a time and strike and they both were time and strike. One was a 3 train, but they were either a rack and snail or a count wheel movement. So we had the opportunity to explain the difference in those. Some people looked at those. I also brought along my chronometer, the grandfather pocket watch, and so people could hear that ticking, and also an old Ironsides alarm clock. In addition, I wore an apron with 2 large pockets in it, and in one pocket I had 4 different watches, and then in the other pocket I had 4 different pocket watches. And Tom and I think the key to our success, and we talked with so many people, I sat down this morning and tried to estimate in the time between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think Tom and I talked to more than 100 people. They ranged in age from kids that when they came up, of course, I was wearing watches up each of my arms. I would say, do you know what time it is? And then I'd show them an analog watch. About half of them said, I can't read that. But to a lot of adults who had questions about clocks and what is this what really looks like inside of my clock. I showed watches to people. I had an Accutron, and I standing in front as people approached this table with clocks and on it and all. I would ask, excuse me, would you like to do a hearing test? Listen to this watch. And I had most people started out by saying, I don't hear it ticking. I say, well, you have to listen to this. Beep. It's running on a tuning fork. There was a lot of interest. We handed out a lot of flyers. We had the flyer for the regional in Lexington on the table. We had flyers for the Clocktoberfest. We laid out underneath the table, almost as a banner on the floor, copies of the Watching Clock Bulletin and also Horological Times. And at times we picked them up off the floor to show examples of the articles and the things that were in it. Tom handed out cards, invited people to the Clocktoberfest. We had a time Trex hooked up to one of the clocks so that people could hear the ticking. And Tom was explaining about putting clocks in beat. Eric came by and was very willing to allow us to take apart a movement that he put on the table. So we would spread it out and then casually put gears back in and ask people, where do you think this one goes? Tom and I both left there at 4 o'clock hoarse. We talked to many, many people, and I thought it was an excellent opportunity for us to share our passions for horology. people were curious of how we could be there, and we didn't make those clocks. And I explained to several people that when you're certified, you're not certified as a clock fixer. You're not certified as a watch fixer. You're certified as a watch or clock maker. So therefore, we are here. Both Tom and I were interviewed by the local radio station. So we had an opportunity to speak about the NAWCC and our local chapter. So if you're watching this video, I encourage you to go to Makers Fair, and I'll put a link to it. And in your local city, find one. It was zero cost to us, right, Eric? It was zero cost to us, and it was great time. People were very curious, and I think it was good outreach. Something that chapter relations, Bob, should encourage and promote, because we're all looking for ways to share our passion about horology. All right, good to see you, Bob. We missed you the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I didn't even know about the Makers Fair until Wednesday night when we got back to our hotel, and didn't even realize it was coming up. I must have missed the Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago when you first talked about it. I'd probably up in New York at that point, so it came as a surprise. We were gone until Saturday, so couldn't help anyway. But yeah, I'm glad you continued it. But Sam and I did it last year and had a real good turnout, good response, and met a number of good people and seemed to develop some interest. So hopefully we'll continue that.
That's right.
But it's an interesting program that they put on. I love looking at some of the other exhibits. So last year
had everything from robot dogs walking around to R2-D2. We had some squadron of Star Wars people. There were blacksmiths, there were glass blowers, there were the library was represented, and they had 3D printers they were doing. Somebody was teaching kids how to make paper airplanes because they were flying all over the place. And but it was what a wide variety of stuff, Ed, right? You got a chance to walk around.
Yeah, and there was some group that had a model rocket. It was about 10 feet tall, and it went up to, they said they put it up 10,000 feet, which is almost 2 miles. They used old school technology, though. They didn't, I don't know if they put a GPS device on it, but they did put their phone number on the side of the rocket just in case somebody found it.
Well, Ed, you came last year. How did it compare to last year, the whole thing?
They had more outside, and which was good. They had I don't know, and they had more in the hallway. I think they had 2 rooms last year, a big one and a small one, but short of that, I think it's about equal size wise, and they had a good crowd as far as I could tell. I mean, you know.
And, considering that Bourbon and Beyond was going on in town, the U of L women's soccer team was playing. There were a lot of things going on in town, and to have that kind of crowd come out, I thought was pretty good. But we talked with people from Southern Indiana, people from Bowling Green, people from Lexington. So people had come from near and far and near to see what was going on there. So it was nice because we were inside. We didn't have to put up a tent or anything. They provided the tables and chairs. We just showed up, signed up, and went to work at it. So it was good. I have to give all the kudos for watching for that coming and signing up and all to Eric. Thank you, Eric, for doing that. One person's idea, a couple of enthusiastic people, and before you know it, we're going to have a great turnout at our next event, I'm sure. Tom asked me this morning to make sure that I mentioned our next event, which is the Clocktoberfest. And you probably have all seen the flyer, but I highlighted one thing right here that says RSVP. And I know maybe not everybody knows that that means Responde s'il vous plaît, which means you're supposed to call and say, hey, I think I'm coming, because they're planning the food for that. And it'd be a great help if you RSVP. All right, that's great. The other thing I was going to share this morning was dating a Bulova watch. Yeah. Does anybody out there own a Bulova watch? Yeah. I happen to own this Bulova watch. It's a pocket watch. It's very thin, and someone I was carrying it in my pocket, and someone at the show was looking at it because it's not only got a convex lens, but also the hands are curved, the face is curved, and also that there's enough room in it to make it that thin. Well, they asked me, when was this made? I said, well, I can't open it, but there's a date code or something on the inside I should be able to tell you. And I told them if they came to our next gathering, I would have the answer. A Bulova watch, a lot of times will have the date code stamped on the back of the watch, if it's a wristwatch, the back of the case. And in the case of a pocket watch, they don't want to put numbers and stuff on the back of the case, so it's on the inside of the case. So I'll go through a brief explanation of those date codes, and then I did some photography. I'll do some sharing screen, and we'll look at those codes inside of this clock. You can date a Bolivia watch that is made after 1926 by these date codes. Before that, I mean, between 1875 and 1926, you really have to get with an expert who knows about the movements and the style of the watches to date them. The first problem really is locating the date code. Like I said, they're usually stamped on the back of your watch case, but in the case of this pocket watch, they're on the inside. If you can't find it, you have to go inside, and it's also stamped on the movements. So here goes Frank. He's going to try and share screen. And all right, inside of the case of this watch case, there's a date code. And in this case, this is the date code right here. It says L6. This happens to be a 10-karat gold rolled gold plate case made in New York. Some guy wrote on the inside when it looks like it was oiled in September 6th of maybe 2000. And if you live in Louisville, you know these initials, CW. So I'm confident that it was serviced properly. To double check, I look at the movement. And inside this case, here's the Bolivia movement. And you would think they would put that date code in great big letters. It's not the 17AH. That's the movement number, the movement type. It is this little number right here. And in fact, I try, and Eric, excuse my out of focus, but that's what it is. It's L6. So once you identify the code, then there's actually a tables. Now, in pre-1950, there wasn't an alpha and numeric code. So if you find a code and it has a alpha character in it, it means that it's post-1950. Pre-1950, they thought they had an ingenious code, and every year has a different character. And for instance, if you start in 1924, the character is an asterisk. And each year that follows, it goes from like an asterisk to a circle to a triangle to a square to a crescent moon to a rounded shield to a horned circle to a rectangular shield to a rounded capital T to a capital X. And then it starts repeating. It says a circle, a triangle, a square, an arrow pointed to the right, a crescent moon, a rounded shield, a horn, circle, an asterisk, a round capital T, a capital X, a circle, a triangle. And then we finally get up to 1947. They just used the number 47, 48, and 49. So pre-1950, you're looking for a character. And those characters identify the year of manufacture. In doing my research online, I found that there were several places that cautioned that this is the year of manufacture, not necessarily the year of distribution. So it might have actually been sold or something the year after. Now, after 1950, then we get in, they said, we can't figure out any more characters or symbols to use, so we're going to start using letters. So in 1950, they started with L, and then it went M, N, there was no O, P, no Q, no R, no S, T, and then in 2000, it was A. So if you remember, the code we found was L6. So in 1950 was the L, and then the 6 then is the year in that decade. So my pocket watch was made in 1956, L6. So I'm going to make sure that there's links to these charts so that you can download them or you can copy them so that you have them at your disposal to figure out when Bolivia watches were made. Now,
Hey Frank,
yeah.
Why didn't they just use 56? Why'd they have to go through all the wingdings and everything?
Probably because they wanted to hide it. So
Well,
if you were buying a watch that was 3 years old at the store, they might not want you to know that that was old stock.
yeah,
That would be my thing.
right. And
So they could,
and the other thing, if you look at them, for instance, in my example, the 6 stamped, you really have to have it in focus and you really have to look at it to see that it's a 6, not an 8, right? The same thing with 2s and 5s and 3s and 8s, and maybe the numbers were just tougher to clearly identify. But I don't work at Bolivia and make decisions there, so I really don't know.
well, Eric, speaking of that, I like Chelsea clocks, and I've got an Andrew, I don't know if it's Demeter's book on that, where he goes into, they've got the inventory of the early Chelsea clocks, and it's interesting because they'll have the manufacture date by a serial number, and then they'll have the date it was sold. They kept very good records in the early days, and you'll find some of them that were made, the movements were made 3 or 4 or 5 years before they actually sold the clock. So
wow.
They actually apparently sat on the shelf. And I mean, imagine going into a jewelry store and buying a watch and go, well, this thing's already 4 years old. Does it need to be serviced?
Yeah.
That's what I would assume. Here's a very small little ladies Bulova watch. You know how small they used to make the things. This has got, you probably can't see it, but it's got an L1 number on the back. So it'd be 1951. So
right. And when I went to Bulova and was researching there, they said another very easy way to tell is by the style of the watch. And so they describe the styles. For instance, if you're looking at a clock from the 20s, those are Deco style, Art Deco, and are very decorative. If you go to the 1930s, they were smoother than the 20s. If you go to the 40s, they were similar to those that were in the 30s, but the designs were a little more rigid. If you go to the 50s, they were more decorative for the next 2 decades. In the 60s, they were bolder. I mean, I don't understand those words. And if you compare it to to 20 years before it, I don't have that to look at and make a comparison. So if I'm buying a watch from Bulova, I would much rather date it by the date code than by its appearance. It's fun because when you that was one of the biggest questions that I got when I pulled out a pocket, my pocket full of wristwatches. People wanted to know, oh, this is cool. When was this made? Oh, when was this made? Oh, when was this made? And I was able to tell them those that I had in my wristwatch pocket. My pocket watch pocket, this was the only one that I didn't know. So I had to figure it out. So
Frank, after you look at watches a long time, you can usually kind of date them within about 10 years just from the style. They have changed. And what's really interesting is most of the big watchmakers are now going back to the styles that were popular back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and reproducing a very similar style because they were classic. I mean, you'll see most of the, not Rolex, but Breitling and Tag Heuer will go back and use a lot of they're reproducing a lot of the Heuer watches, the Carrera, the Monaco, stuff like that, coming out with a new model of it.
Yeah. And as that trend continues, you're going to want to be even sharper about, well, is this made in the 30s or is this a reproduction made in the 2020s, the 2020s? So
yeah, well, when you see the price tag, you won't be that concerned because if you get either one, you'd be quite happy.
yeah, and I know it's the same if you come across, say, the Hamiltons, the rectangular men's wristwatches that Hamilton made. It's tough to tell when they were made. Somebody told me, well, in the 40s they were narrower. In the 50s, I don't have two to compare to each other. It's tough to tell. The other way to know is to, and we talked about identifying watches last time we talked about watches, is to pull out your phone and pull up your search engine and that little camera. You won't be able to see it. The little camera that's all the way to the right of the bar. If you push that, it'll bring up a screen and you actually take a picture and it brings up a comparison of all the images on the internet. And you can then get a pretty good idea from that. I learned that from the watch guys.
Actually, I used that trick at our chapter meeting on Sunday. And of the 8 people that were at the meeting, no one else realized their phone could do it.
Yeah, little tricks.
Passing on the knowledge. Yep, great.
Little tricks let us know all those things that happen. All right.
Hey,
And
Frank,
the other one is 2 people had iPhones and said mine didn't do it. Well, I'm a Android person, so I couldn't tell them how their Apple works, but one of them finally figured out you can't use the Apple search engine. You have to go to the Google app.
Yeah, but that's a great, it's a tool. As people approached during the Maker Faire, I opened conversations by saying, hey, what kind of watch are you wearing? A lot of people were wearing Fitbits and Apple watches. So it was I was like, it tells you your blood pressure and whether you slept well last night, but does it tell you what time it is? They had to change the screen so it showed an analog or a digital display so they could tell what time it was. I usually don't look at this. I just want to know how many steps I took.
Many years ago, our chapter used to do a quartz watch fine for anybody that wore a quartz watch to a meeting. Clock people rebelled and said, not fair to us because some of us don't even have wristwatches.
That's it. Good
They
morning.
should have been fined for not having a wristwatch.
Yeah.
Good morning, Rhett. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I had a little trouble getting in here this morning.
Oh, well, we, as a quick summary and bringing up to speed, we talked about the very successful Makers Fair that we attended here in Louisville and had a booth. And then we just went through discerning the date that a Bulova watch is made and how you can tell in the charts for that. And those will all be included in my summary with the recording of this meeting. But another thing I wanted to talk about this morning is how many got this in the mail today? They've gotten their membership renewal for the NAWCC. Oh, I always like to be first. Yeah. So I got mine in the mail, and I just wanted to remind people that when you get these in the mail, you can renew your membership online. And I find it's actually easier to do it online than it is to figure out all of these boxes and checking and doing all of that other stuff on a form. I know a lot of people still do it by form, write checks and do that kind of stuff, but I want to encourage you to renew your membership when it's time. And remember, you can do it online. If you can take a picture of a watch and determine what year it was made, you can go online and renew your membership. So that's great.
Hey,
So,
Frank,
Bobby, yeah.
if you don't mind, real quick, back to the Maker Faire. I have taken your radio interview and I've extracted it and put it into the YouTube. So in the chapter 35 YouTube channel, there's a video now from last year's radio interview with Bob, and then this year's interview with you and Tom.
All right.
So the videos are up there. Also, one thing you didn't mention was the excitement that we received from First Build, and how the CEO once again was unable to attend the Maker Faire, but he wants to attend the Maker Faire to meet us because he is a clockmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And First Build has expressed interest in hosting our chapter to meet at their facility, which I would, if nobody's been to First Build, it is super cool. It is a very cool place.
Hey, Eric, explain to Rhett. Rhett's the chair of the whole organization. Talk to him about this guy. We need to encourage him to get involved.
Well, we got Kevin is his name. He is out of town. He's like international right now. He couldn't make it. But he does have the invite. One of his people texted him the invite to Clocktoberfest.
Mm-hmm.
So I have
now,
pushed out
the CEO of GE?
Mm-hmm.
GE Appliances.
What is he, the CEO? Okay, of GE.
Yeah, GE Appliances, who run First Build. First Build is a maker space. It's where people can go in. You can be, the general public is available to go in and get trained on using the milling machine, the lathes, the laser cutters, the water jet cutters. You can get trained on how to use this, and you can go in and make stuff. And that's where they do a lot of the research and development for GE Appliances. It's a very cool place. Anyway, Kevin is very excited about this. He has a YouTube channel that Kevin Makes, I think it is. I've pushed out his videos before on him, like working on his clocks. So hopefully I'll be able to like track him down through his YouTube channel and make sure that I can get him to come to the Clocktoberfest.
Yeah, and when we were at the Makers Faire, there was I can think of 3 people that were excited about the clocks, and then they said, "Oh man, my boss has got to see this." Who's your boss? Oh, he's the CEO of GE Appliance, and this is who he is, and he's really into clocks. And it was like, cool. Here, give him this invitation. And they texted him the invitation to our Clocktoberfest. So, and as Eric said, he would like to sponsor or host a meeting with us. So it's a cool thing. It's
Yeah,
cool.
we definitely need to get him involved in the organization. He'd be a great, great addition.
I kind of talked to the people on the side going, wouldn't it be neat to like get that Louisville clock back up and running? And they're all like, yes.
Yes, yes.
So if we get GE appliances behind it, I know some of the conversations there. So
That's
Must be 9 o'clock.
somebody's a minute late.
Never on
Whose clock
time.
is running slow? Yeah,
It's the Lutheran time. It's the Lutheran time.
yeah, that's it. Well,
Bob, it would be interesting to see if we could get him involved for maybe Chattanooga next year as well.
Yeah, yeah. We'll work on it. Somebody mentioned him last year, and I encouraged them to get in touch, and we've never followed up on it. I forgot his name actually, but yeah, I think that would be great if we could get him involved, because he sounds like a very interesting fella. Makes some apparently really neat clocks. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric, are you going to be home later?
I will. I got to run over to Lowe's, pick up some stuff, and then I'll be sending out the
Reminder.
newsletter today,
Yeah.
the chapter newsletter. So
I'll give you a shout out when I'm putting together my report of this meeting, and we'll make sure that we have links to that guy's YouTube channel and all that stuff, so people know who we're talking about, get a scope of it. So that's great.
well, and let's consider sending his videos and stuff up to headquarters too. Let's get him on the forums. Let's publicize him. It can't hurt.
No.
yeah.
Yeah. The guy who knows how to make clocks.
Yeah.
And
Very
run
good.
a very successful big company. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's fun. Well, you probably noticed I'm tipping my cup. We've come to just about my 30-minute limit. I want to remind you all, every opportunity that you have to go out and stand and talk with somebody about your passion for horology, take the advantage. Go out there and talk about it. You can't just wait for them to come and jump in your pond. Go out there fishing for them. So that's my encouragement always and every day. So one of the things I noticed at the Makers Faire, I was wearing my mask. And when I was all done, I washed my hands, and I only had to ask a couple of people to please don't stand so close to me. So stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you all on the little screen next week. All right. Thanks for being here.